This question for me is a message that should be amplified to understand or to get a better insight of the author's or main character history.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tales of Our Times. This is a show where we discuss the stories that move us, what makes them so interesting, and why others could or should find meaning in them as well. This is not a spoiler-free show, so bear that in mind as you continue to listen. We tackle books, movies, comics, and more. Where there's a story, there's a reason to read or watch for today's show. I'm your host, Amanda Stevens, and joining me today is my guest, Temo Alfaro. Welcome, Temo.
Hello, Amanda, and hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks.
My name is Temo. I'm 28, and I'm very excited to share this story with all of you.
I'm really excited to talk about it as well. I didn't think I would ever, I don't know why, but I didn't think I would ever be able to talk about one of Croneburg's works here on my show. I think it's just because a lot of people that I interact with in my daily life don't watch his movies. So I was over the moon.
Yeah, this film is the first time I watch something like that.
Really?
And because I'm a technology manager, so this film introduced me to a different spectrum of technology management from the very artistic way.
That's true.
So I'm very looking forward to share my experience because it was a whole experience watching this movie in particular.
I think this movie is really good and has a very interesting message to it, which is why I'm so excited to talk about it. But I should also say some little trigger warnings right away. There is body horror all over this movie. So if you go watch the trailer, just be personally prepared for that. And number two, it deals with a lot of issues around sexuality, sexual expression, and kind of personal autonomy as well. And there is, at the very beginning, there is also violence towards children, which is kind of a theme, an underlying theme throughout the movie. So if those are things that really ick you out or you just cannot stand, this may not be for you. But if you think you can work through it, I would really encourage you to listen to this episode and then maybe even to go check out this movie. So, by the way, the movie title, I don't even think we've said it yet, is Crimes of the Future.
Amanda, that was a great introduction.
Thanks.
And I really admired those words. This movie was done by David Croneburg, as you said. And the main reason that I watched this movie is because Léa Seydoux, a French actress, appears on this movie.
Oh, really?
And at the same time, she's working with Kristen Stewart. She's a great actress from the US, and Viggo Mortensen. So that trio is a good combination for this movie.
Yeah, it's a very strong leading cast. And it was released in just 2022, which surprised me. I thought it was older. I learned that today. So, there's so much we can say about it. I think we should save it till the end. Temo, could you give us a summary of what happens in Crimes of the Future?
Yes. As the title, it happens in the future in an unknown city. Nobody knows where the city is. Nobody knows the time of the story. This story begins with an underground and low-key artist who are actually experimenting with their bodies because these artists are trying to get free pain surgeries while experimenting with their sexuality. So they are performing this open body surgeries without pain. They're having organs removed. They're also having this mutation of organs, and they are placing their inner guts through different parts of their bodies.
Yeah.
So Léa Seydoux is the main performer. And
she's one of two performance artists, right?
Yes.
So she's the broadcaster presenter of it.
Yes.
And then the man,
Viggo Mortensen, his character has mutated organs. And so that's their performance, is like they do live surgery on him while people watch. And she wants to prove that we can have evolution and revolution in the from the political view, that our bodies can actually transmutate and can actually deal with other emotions, feelings, and even thoughts about how to explore the body movement and artistic expression.
Yeah. And because there's two important things in this unnamed city, in this unknown future, two things have become very common. And it's that, one, people don't feel pain anymore, which is why, as you said, like they're having pain-free surgeries because like nothing hurts. And then number two, some people are having like crazy bodily mutations, like growing new organs or multiples of organs or other things like that, right?
Yes. And the main plot starts to be revealed when there is a children involved. And this kid was murdered by his dad, and the dad wants to get into the mainstream because he's also developing new cereal bars made of plastic.
Ooh.
So that plastic are making you to live longer and also to be more resistant to other changes. On the contrary, there's also this legal and legitimate part of the story where Kristen Stewart, she's recording, she is trying to legalize the illegal activities, because in order to perform this, they need to have
surgeries?
legal permission from physicians, from doctors, from all these institutions that can provide the care of the body.
Yeah. And so wait, like I want to go into the end in just a little bit more detail, because like a big part of this movie is, as you mentioned, these live surgeries. But like towards the end of that, one thing why Viggo Mortensen continues to get surgery is like his body's just producing brand new organs. And at the same time, he's kind of like wasting away because he can't eat anything, like nothing. The regular food is like not nutritious to his body. So would you like to tell everyone, just like spoil the whole ending for us? Why is that happening? This is like the quote unquote crime.
Okay, so the main crime is that he is going through a metamorphosis of his body. So he is employing different food that he was not used to have. And also his psyche is being disturbed by all these new changes of his body. So the main crime is that he wants to commercialize that artistic material in collaboration with Leah. So both are trying to take advantage of the new organs and try to put them on the market, on the black market still.
Da-na-na-na.
And who has the right of sharing the kid's body?
Yeah, because there's a kid who's killed at the very beginning. There's a whole side plot about whether or not they should perform a surgery on him with his dad's consent, but without his mother's consent, because he's already murdered. And the reason they want that shown is because this child could eat plastic. And in fact, he had to eat plastic, as I understand.
Yeah.
But the government doesn't want, for some reason, the government doesn't want that getting out. They think like it would cause mass chaos and like other things. But then there's this very personal horror of like, even if you have a greater message, can you do that for like a child? It's just like disrespect. It's very upsetting. If you love children, this is a very upsetting part of the movie. But there are a lot of interesting questions that are posited throughout it, like wrestling with a lot of things. So the metamorphosis of like evolving to this new dystopia, all these hyper evolutions, like can we eat plastic? Should we eat plastic? Should we fight against that or go with it? Like what if we don't feel pain? Like can we be open to other experiences? Should we just try to maintain our normalcy at all costs? There's a lot. There's
a lot of things to digest. And when I first saw it, I was not able to understand all of these features and all of these, how can I say, challenges.
Yeah.
And even for me as a technology manager, I was not able to even accept the fact that there are criminal minds,
Yeah.
that there are weird stuff that could be done into our bodies, not for like health purposes, but for entertainment purposes. So for me, that was very shocking.
It's an upsetting line for you. Well,
Yes.
let's get into your first experience. And what was your first experience with this movie?
Yeah, my best friend, he is a filmmaker in Mexico.
Ooh.
And he was studying all these new trends in cinema, that how directors can visualize and can amplify the messages of how your body is polyvalent and can perform multiple tasks. And from my side, I was more interested in knowing and getting into the technological management,
Like the
planning
aspect of
phases
that.
and strategies. So it was a good combination of like this science fiction approach with the business, commercial, and technology management approach that I deliver almost every day on the things that I do. So
you were like looking at this like, well, how would this even roll out practically?
Yeah,
and like
because-
where would these come in? Like how could we deliver these like and how could we make sure that like this was done in an ethical and like a sensible way, right? Like is that
Right.
what you mean?
yeah,
That's a very interesting lens to view this movie through. I really wish I'd watched it with you.
yeah, because on the business school they teach us how to maximize the
course.
revenue, but in this movie it was like they're not employing technology
Yeah.
for the profit. They're doing it because they want to show that the body can support and can handle multiple modifications at the same time, free of pain.
Yeah, it's more for like
That
the
is
message they have.
mind-blowing.
It's wild. So then let's get into what you found meaningful in this movie, because I think we're kind of veering there already. So what made this movie so meaningful to you when you watched it?
It became very meaningful because for me as a humanitarian data advisor, that's the path that I'm following on my
okay.
profession. So for me, always looking at the ethical approach, the values, and of course always getting this morality of this is good, this is not good. So there are boundaries on my profession, and this was way far, like it reached my boundary and it surpassed it
It like
phenomenally.
full speed it. It's like a race car going way past that.
So the first time I couldn't handle my stomach. My guts were like,
We watched the trailer right before this, and there was a part that I knew was coming, and I already knew what was going to happen. I'd been prepared for it, and then it came up on the screen, and I still had to look away. Like I can't stomach it.
Yeah. So this is also very valuable for me from the aspect of the philosophy of science and technology. I know it's a big word, but
Get
that means
into
that
it.
but that means like what's good for technology and what is good for people, but without pushing those limits. Because right now we believe that technology will solve our issues, and we need to embrace technology, and we need to be highly performant and have innovation here, there, and always stand for innovation, right?
Yeah.
But this movie is a warning call that if we don't have the mechanisms or the frameworks to actually cope ethically with technology, more and more crimes will arise like this.
I apologize. The reason I'm laughing is because like I just keep thinking like this movie is like such a challenge to like all of those like noble and necessary goals of like we have to keep this ethical and like we have to like make sure that this is what's best for all people and not just like let technology or government run wild. This movie will make you grapple with that like a lot.
And you have a mix of feelings, and it's a roller coaster of emotions because you can start watching this movie like completely opened, but when you start going through the story and through the plot, it becomes very hard to digest, as I mentioned before, and also it is a big hit of adrenaline because at some point you reach like all this raw and uncensored scenes that you're questioning, or you start questioning if this is where technology is driving us. Like, what's going to be their boundary and what's going to be our boundaries from the technology management approach.
And from the humanitarian side of like the ethical humanitarian side. And you have to have like someone actively pushing ethics in these sciences, because otherwise, like without that unchecked, like you mentioned, like it starts becoming like a rampant experimentation. And like we start to devalue these like really important things, such as perhaps people's lives or pain. And in this movie, like the big question about that becomes about, we didn't touch on it much, but the little boy, right? That becomes kind of a place where people start to realize what their own personal boundaries might be. And in that regard, it's a very interesting like look. So like it is a good movie to kind of help you figure out what your lines might be, I guess. And it's also interesting, like in the movie Crimes of the Future, like what is the crime? You know, like is the crime that these people are doing performance art on themselves? Is the crime that these people have evolved to eat previously unedible materials? Is the crime how we are using technology so rampantly to perform these what would be today like really truly heinous acts, you know? So interesting in what is criminalized. And I guess I'm kind of getting a little bit off topic, but do you think that that's why this should be considered a tale of our time, or why other people could find meaning in it? Or is there another larger reason?
The main message here, I think, is how do we cope with those digital paradises and fantasies, because we're seeing them as a science fictional stories. But what is the story that we want to tell right now? Like, are we standing for transhumanism? Are we protecting our values and our ethical ways of working and expressing? Or what is the story, or what is even our criminal act? Are we somehow accepting and tolerating that? So I think there are multiple messages in this movie, but what I want to say is that if this story is happening in the future, or if this story is happening right now.
Ooh, Temo, you just give me goosebumps. Well, I mean, that's the fun of perspective. I view it as like perspective fiction. For like possible future, maybe it could happen, you know, kind of like Handmaid's Tale, or that same author has done like many other different versions of that. But unfortunately, we are out of time. So my last question to you, Temo, is if you could give David Croneburg's Crimes of the Future a one-phrase subtitle of your very own, what would that be?
It would be Dystopian Present, because I have worked in different technological hubs around the world, and the same message has been transmitted from place to place, that technology is good for us. But when you just go out, like that conference room, you will see that there's people having hunger or starving. There's people who do not even have their passports, or they don't have even education or access to public care. So Crimes of the Future is not giving us that. And in the present, we're also seeing that every day. Are we living under a dystopian present?
So here we are then, Crimes of the Future, dystopian present. Well, Temo, this has been such a good time for me. Thank you so much for coming. I've really enjoyed our talk.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, and also thank you to all you listeners out there for joining us today here on Radio Taiwan International. This has been Tales of Our Time, and I'm your host, Amanda Stevens, with my wonderful guest, Temo Alfaro.
Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed learning more about David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future, Dystopian Present, a tale of our time. We'll see you next time.